here who has more raffle tickets?
This is a fly by John Larimer, which he calls a Brazilian. And I started by tying on the return wire, tying it down, wrapping back. Normally I've been tying this with a Alec Jackson hook, but tonight I didn't have the right size and color on this. I wanted a black, and I'm using partridge Bartlett number 6 for this. Size doesn't really matter all that much. It's just
Let me interrupt for 1 second.
yeah.
I want to interrupt for 1 second. We don't have handouts tonight, but I've asked Tom. He has both the pictures and the recipes, and they'll be posted this week, I'm assuming, in our blog for you to look at.
Dave,
Okay.
did you announce that coffee is ready?
Oh, the second pot coffee's ready if anybody needs it like me.
Okay, we go back about to a 1/16 of an inch, 1/8 of an inch to the point, and tie in the tail. Now this calls for a regular red feather from a regular pheasant, but I like the golden pheasant with the red with the rump feather, because it's brighter. I like the variation of that, and so that's what I'm using for this pattern. And I get it all trimmed down, place it with the concave side down, and tie onto the 2 or 3 wraps very loose on the stem. Then I fold this down with my left hand, fingers, lift it up and pull it forward and break it.
Where do you like to break it up?
I like to break it further out than I did on this one.
I mean, at home or on the river?
I'm gonna have to get another one here.
Bad feather anyway.
That one was,
Thank you.
I like it when I demonstrate. I like to have all of my stuff together, all trimmed and ready to go, so I don't use a lot of time. But that's what I normally do. Here we go with 2 wraps again. Press it and pull it, and then bring it to just a little bit past the bend. And then I see that it's on top and wrap forward. Once I do that, then I put in the wire. I just happen to have a piece of wire cut here. Fold it on the end, and then up. And I usually leave it on the right side on this because it's a pretty rough dubbed body anyway, and so this keep it right there, and it's ready for my dubbing. I just make a loop about 5 inches long, dubbing loop. Oh. Didn't realize I had left my rest off of there. Forgot to put the rest in. Have a little dubbing here, a little dubbing rope, place it in there. And the recipe is there. I've forgotten that this is STS trilobal. Material. I just happen to have a fantastic tool here that a friend of mine, machinist, did. Some of you know him.
Does he make hackle pliers and hair snappers too?
Yes, he does. Most everything. Very fine tools. This is a little bit fat still, so I'd like to always use rotary method when I can. Not that that's too important on this, except that it makes it a little bit easier for me to control. And I need some more dubbing. And I want to leave about 2 head spaces there. The reason for that is in order to tie a rather small head. It's helpful to keep ahead of the material each time. Not tie on top of the material previous. I didn't do a very good job of dubbing there, so. And now I'll wrap my, I'll counter wrap my red ribbing, making 5 turns, which is standard for steelhead fly. And then worry this off. trim a little bit. And then use, I've used a kip tail. This is, I think is a calf tail or a kip tail. Not sure which. Not that you can tell the difference, but and it's tied rather sparsely. I normally tie, I like sparse tails anyway, but especially for a low water fly like this, late summer fly. It's easy to get a little too much. Measure back to about the middle of the tail. And I like to trim before I tie in. Tie about 5 wraps. Make sure it's on top. Put a drop of cement on with this hard hair. And continue tying. And then right in front of that, we'll put four strands of copper, and with this light and with the camera, changes the color a lot with this, as you will see. But I tie in 4 strands right in front of the head. Then bring it back in line with the wing and tie it down back to the back of where the wing is tied. Then I trim it at the end. Okay. Now that's not changing color the way it did earlier.
Oh, that's safe copper.
So there, it did come out all right. I meant to come under with my rib underneath the tail, and I forgot to do that. Now, all that's left is a hackle. And I used the claret. It looks awfully red when you look at it like this. And it's supposed to be a dull color. But when it's all spread out, after it's tied in and it's just a collar, it looks much duller.
Ed, does
Yes.
it matter if you, does the pattern call for big dots or little dots on the guinea hen?
It doesn't. It
Okay.
doesn't. It's more a matter of your preference, I think,
Okay.
in the style.
Thank you.
Well, I'm tying with Danville 6/0, which really is mighty small. It's 70 denier actually, and it breaks once in a while. It'll get a little weak and break. Now, what's really important here is your thread control. It's important to keep it nice and flat, but it's especially after we get to the we get to the point of forming the head. Kathy, you asked about the size of the dots. It will be duller with the smaller dots, but it's dull enough. I think you will see with this. It's dull enough with the large dots on this.
How many reps was that at?
I'm sorry?
How many reps was that?
It depends on, that was about 5 reps. Yeah, that's a little bit heavy on this one. But he wraps this fairly heavy. I think you saw that from the pictures on the blog. Okay. And when you tie this, I've seen people do this with it. Bad mistake. When you wrap that, you're wrapping further toward the front, and you're over wrapping this. So when you pull back, it tightens it. So that's what you want to do. I've seen some pretty famous people doing this with it, and it loosens it. So always avoid that. Okay, now brush this a little bit so that it spreads it out more. Now this, you ask about the fullness of this. Really, since it is a low water fly, if you want it lighter, you want to put lighter, a lighter wrapping of hackle on there. And but if you keep it pretty light, it'll take fairly heavy. That's what he uses quite a bit of. Larimer uses quite a bit of hackle. Not quite as much as I have on this one. Okay. And there it is. Let's see. This is the one I just tied. And here are 3 others with a little bit different dressing on the sparkle on the wing. Questions?
Ed,
Yes.
what did you say you use for ribbing?
He uses wine-colored copper wire.
Brassy size?
Pardon me?
Brassy size? What size?
This is medium, and that's about the size that he uses on it, Larimer uses on it. His is a little more wine than this, so I like the little bit of contrast, shows a little better with the red on that. Okay, shall I tie the next one? The next one is, I have to pull all this stuff together.
It's okay, that's all right. I just want to mention one thing while he's preparing for the next fly, and that is, it's really important for you to brush out the feather, that final feather color you're putting in, because brushing it out allows it to look more soft as opposed to when they're together. It looks, yeah, and it breathes a lot better when moving from a mobility standpoint in the water. Steelhead likes mobility. Okay, and while he's getting ready for the next slide, John, did you want to talk about those feathers? It's got some nice turkey tail.
Oh, I saw those over there, yeah.
Yeah, if you're a fly tyer, you're like drawn to them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
With that squirrel that you used it for the wing,
I'm sorry?
with that squirrel that you used it for the wing,
No, it was calf tail. Calf tail for the wing, yes.
Oh my,
Yeah,
you can do a fan dance.
Dyed black. I'm sorry?
The originator of the fly used Crystal Flash,
Wow.
Yes.
because I
They're some
see
of
you
the
did
best
the other
turkeys I have seen,
two
ever.
versions. Kind of
Yes.
cool.
Right.
Pat Dunlap has got 40 of these, well, he's got 38 of them, because I've got the other two. Here, these are for sale, or you can get a hold of Pat Dunlap over at Cascade Crest, and he'll make sure you get one or two. They're very nice. Would you like to
very nice, yeah.
pass them around? Take a look at excellent quality.
Approximate price on those?
Huh?
Approximate price?
$25 each.
Huh?
$25 the whole thing.
You see that?
Yes, sir. And that fire in July at Bedford.
Now this fly is the green butt purple, which is also a Larimer fly. And I use a little variation on it, but let's see. I tie it on a chrome or nickel hook, which is Alec Jackson. This is a 5.
Size 5, 2052.
And it's, I tie it on the nickel because I think that the green probably shows up better. If you were tying that with a black hook, you would certainly want to put white over the, as a base on the hook, an underbody there underneath the floss, because otherwise it would show through your black would show through. Okay, on this we start basically the same. We start with tying down the return. We'll just do it this way. And then on this, I go, because this hook comes out further, and just the way it's shaped, I come back to the point of the hook with that. Has no tail. This has no tail on it, but I don't do it with the thread, I forgot.
Yeah.
Because I'd be using black thread there with it. Sorry about that, folks. Okay. First thing I'm going to do is tie in the wire, the ribbing. And the rib that he uses a heavier wire than I have here, but he uses the green like this. And doesn't take very much of it because I don't like putting the green through the purple, so I don't continue it on. He continues it on, Larimer does, but because I'm going to put a bend in there just to hold it. I don't think that's really necessary, but it's normally done, and I want to be sure it doesn't pull out. One of the real problems with this round ribbing, though, is that it distorts the body a little bit, so you have to keep it right under the hook. And get my floss flattened out. This is Unifloss, so Unistretch actually. And you have to be sure you keep that wire right under the bottom. You can adjust a little bit if it comes around, but it's best to just kind of watch it and not let it migrate. We come back to over the hook point, and this hook is curved a little bit, so you got to move to compensate there. We've gone a little past the halfway mark so that we can cover that bend in the wire. And we're going to counter wrap this also. And since we're going a little more than halfway with it, we'll go like 3 wraps. And then fatigue it again. And you see it doesn't show up a lot, but it does actually make a ribbing there.
I was reading about that, wire wrapping like that on the floss, the durability of the floss.
I'm sorry, say?
The durability of the flapping,
Yeah,
with the sharp teeth and hitting it.
right, right. And we'll do a dubbing loop again. Wayne Llewellyn says it's really important that the rating, important materials control guy, thread control guy, says that it's important when you are doing a dubbing loop to flatten the thread. Now, I don't see how that's important on this, but with something like delicate dry flies